One thing that I hope people write this down, remember it for the rest of your life. Labels are meant for boxes. They are not meant for people.
Oh, I
They are
love that. Let's coin that one.
1,000%, right?
Say that one more time because I loved it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it again.
Yeah, labels are meant for boxes. They're not meant for people. And it's funny, again, that the shy thing, just because somebody said you're shy, maybe you were as a kid. Do you think from 8 years old till 38, in 30 years, do you think maybe someone could have changed? But in their mind, they've associated JM as being shy as an 8-year-old. Therefore, he's still supposed to be shy today. Well, it's just BS. You change, you evolve, you become a different person. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the 8-year-old or anything wrong with 38. It's just the evolution of who you are.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Janna here. Hope you're all doing well. I have a special guest with me today, J.M. Ryerson. He's the podcast host of Let's Go Win. And JM and I, well, we could just talk for hours. In fact, we've been already talking for quite a bit today. JM, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Janna, thanks for having me. And you're right. We literally looked at each other. We're like, we should probably hit record because we're just chatting. We're having a great time. And you were
We've been
so
talking for
awesome.
15 minutes.
I know. And it's so easy. Well, here's what I would say. It's not often, or it's not every day that you find somebody that you just click with immediately, and that's how it was with you on my show. So anyway, I'm humbled to be on your show and very grateful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, being on your show was it was honestly, it's been one of my favorite interviews, and you're just an amazing interviewer. You have that nice voice, and you know what caught my eye. I remember the first time we were introduced was that you also help people with limiting beliefs, and that really resonates with me as I do the same. But you also help businesses with leadership. You help create thriving company cultures. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I've learned early on. I've built and sold 3 companies, and they were in the financial service world. But here's the deal: I don't know anything about financial services. I never did. That wasn't what I was good at, and I knew that early on. I was good at sales. I was good at building teams, and ultimately leadership. But it all starts with culture. Now, here's the crazy part, Janna. If I ask 100 companies, "What's your culture?" 99% of the time, they won't be clear on it. Because I'll ask one executive and they'll say, one iteration of it. I'll ask another executive in the same company and it's different. And people are like, well, why is that important? It is literally everything from hiring to firing to having the right people in the right seat, going in the right direction. So, what's really simple is often overlooked, and it creates so many challenges and so many, it's just inefficiencies. So, professionally, yes, that's what I do. Now, the self-limiting belief part comes when I do the executive coaching with these executives, because here's the deal: we've all inherited some form of a self-limiting belief along the way. No matter how awesome our parents were, it's just inevitable that some of that generational stuff got passed down, myself included. By the way, I received it. I've done everything in my power not to give it to my kids, but I'm sure there's definitely some there. And so, if there's one thing I could eradicate 100%, it would be self-limiting beliefs. I don't like them. They don't serve us. So, yeah, I'm passionate about that for sure.
Yeah, and a few things I want to hit on, and I want to start with the culture. And I think it confuses people because it's not something that's really talked about. And um, I used to own a few different businesses when I was married, and what I learned, JM, just to kind of go on what you said, is that the attitude of the manager, the ones that are there running the show during the day, and how they do things, it filters down into the employees. And so when I go into a company or business and I see certain behaviors or maybe laziness or whatever it might be, then I know where that's coming from. because that they set the show for everyone else. And so when you can go in and everyone is on the same wavelength, so to speak, it really makes a big difference. And especially like with the limiting beliefs, right? Um, it's just you and I were talking about this earlier, and I was telling you that I was really, really glad that I healed my mindset, because if not, I was going to pass it down to my kids. And that's the same with the owners of the companies, right? The managers, whatever it is that they're dealing with inside, they have to deal with it somehow, right? If they don't heal it. So when you like with the executives, is that who you work with on the limiting beliefs? The executives of the companies.
Yeah, so the executive coaching side, that's where we really dive in because what I want them to do is really have what I call work life balance, work life harmony. I kind of go back and forth on those two words. And some people are like, you can't have that. Well, you can, and you'll actually have a far greater success in your company when you actually have that. So, when I'm sitting down with them, I'm speaking to a mirror because my first company and a half, I didn't. I didn't really have my stuff under control. I didn't know clear what our culture was. So I made all the mistakes. And I don't want people to go through it because it creates so much challenges. You're working harder, swimming upstream really against the current, trying to build. So we were
Yeah.
growing in both the first company and the second company at about 15% per year, but at what cost? And most of these executives, that maybe their relationships are garbage, maybe their health is not great, and it all does come down to, are you clear on who you really are, who your company really is, how you should behave, and is everybody, and once you get that clear, oh my gosh, it's just like, wait a minute, this doesn't have to be so hard. So it's not like I'm being an armchair quarterback. I literally made all the mistakes myself, and so now I can go talk to them so they don't have to go through the same pain that I went through.
Yes, and that's 100% true though. Is like life experiences are our best teachers. And I know in my life when I went through the process and shattered my limiting beliefs, uh, once I found the love within and accepted myself and approved of myself, created my own happiness, I realized that the choices that I was making with friends, the things that I did, what interested me, all of it completely changed. I realized I was choosing those things based on those limiting beliefs. And so I would imagine that the company culture, in other words, if the executive, whatever their limiting beliefs are, then they're probably hiring employees based upon that. So when you go in and you work with these people, do you also find that there's kind of a cleaning up of house, so to speak, within their employees as well?
Yeah, often that is a part of it, and unfortunately, that's never the fun thing. But here's the
Mhm.
deal: they're not happy either. So if you have a specific culture, and everyone has one, by the way, whether they're intentional about it or not, it's just really being clear so that you know who you want to bring on the team. So to answer your question, yes, often it does happen. But there's an example, and I'll call him Jeff. I was told when I went into this company that Jeff was literally the biggest jerk in the world, and we need to get rid of him. And for the first 45 minutes of my hour-long discovery with Jeff, he was living up to the bill, man. I mean, he was not nice at all. And I looked at him and I said, "Can I ask you, do you enjoy what you do?" And you could see him just like rear up. He's like, "No, I freaking hate it." And I said, okay, well, you were hired to do that. And he said, I'm in recruiting. I was supposed to be in marketing. And I said,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
interesting. Now here's the crazy part. This company had a huge marketing need, a huge marketing need. We moved Jeff from being in recruiting to marketing. 90 days later, when I walked through the door, Jeff is like Moses parting the Red Sea. I mean, they loved him. He's happy as can be because he wasn't the wrong person, he was in the wrong seat. And
Wow.
so it's a little bit of that you have to figure out, like, A, are you passionate about what you're doing? Are you good at what you're doing? Like, for instance, if you wanted me to be your accountant or be a CFO, bad idea. I'm not going to be happy and the books are going to be really bad.
Well, I guess I won't ask then.
If you want sales and leadership, like, yes, plug me in. But if it's like dealing with numbers, no, Janna, that's a bad idea. And that was ultimately what was happening with this guy.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing to me because you probably asked him a question that no one had asked. Instead, the his bosses are trying to fit him into this box, and make him do something that he just doesn't want to do, and then it caused all this other stuff. And then you come in and you ask the one question, and this change happens, and then there you go. Um, when I was reading about you, something that stuck out to me is the three values that you teach in leadership. Can you tell me more about those?
Well, I'll give you the three values. I don't know if that's where you're going with my company, which is happy, healthy, wealthy. And I wasn't the first one. Courage, fun, and transcend were actually the first values that I had for our company. But what I realized is transcend doesn't mean a lot to most people. So it wasn't really resonating, including my employees. But in my coaching for 20 some odd years, Jana, you know what I figured out? The three things that people want: they want to be happy, they want to be healthy, and they want to be wealthy. And I'm not talking just financially, I'm talking spiritually, I'm talking relationships. And so I'm sitting there having a meeting with my board, and I'm like, wait a minute. Why would I go over any other values than this? This is what we're coaching on. This is what the people want from us. That's who we need to have on our team. And so when we got that very clear, here's the best example. Some people like to have a good time and they're genuinely they want to be happy. I feel like most people do want that. I do, but there are some people that they're when they go to work, I'm just going to be the stick in the mud. And if you're going to be that, you're not going to fit on my team. If you look at the glass and you think it's half empty versus half full, you just won't fit on the let's go win team. It doesn't mean you're bad. It's just we're not culturally aligned. And so that's ultimately it's simplified so many things in my own business and when I'm coaching people. When we're working on something, are you genuinely happy? Okay, and then we dive into what that looks like. Are you healthy? How does that look? And are you really waking up and fired up about the day because you feel like your best self? And ultimately, are you wealthy both financially, relationships, spiritually? And most of the time people will not have that all dialed in because look, life happens. Somewhere along the line, we lost ourselves. And so yeah, that's the three values of our company. And when I go to coach, that's really my focus.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you used to have three other values you focused on. So I'm curious, when you changed them to happy, healthy, and wealthy, was that when you went through your healing process? After you went through your healing process, is that what made that change?
No, I wish I could say yes.
I thought
No,
it was. I thought I was right.
no, I had already gone through the muck or whatever you want to call it, which, it was when I was my gosh, I would have been early 30s. And I was that executive that on the outside, making seven figures plus per year. So everything financially looks great. But my relationships were a mess. My wife and I were separated for a year. My health, I was almost 300 pounds, which again, I was an athlete in college that just, I wasn't feeling good about myself. And I realized that something was off. And so that was my moment where it was like, you know what, JM, you're not showing up as the best version of you, and you're not showing up as the best version as a parent. You're not showing up as the best spouse. Until I could take responsibility for that and stop looking and pointing fingers and being
Yeah.
unhappy overall, that was when that shift happened for me. And you and I were talking off air. I realized I was losing my kids, 50% of the time. And for me, that just wasn't really an option. And so that got me to wake up and say, wait a minute, I love my wife. I mean, I love her. However, I had fallen out or really fallen out of love with myself. And you can't love anybody else if you can't love yourself first. So that was my transformation point. But it's funny how, as much as I coach on the values, I didn't nail the first cultural values for Let's Go Win because I was so kind of focused on what I was writing about at the time. And then when I made the realization that, wait a minute, every client that I have wants to be happy, healthy, wealthy. This is the values, and it's just everything's taken off from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that people, JM, in my opinion, sometimes the most simplest things, right? It's like before, like you had the word transcend, right? Sometimes we look for something that we think it needs to be more, right? But everything you just said is right. Like that's it. Those three things right there. Every single person wants that. There's there's no one that doesn't want it. And I think that sometimes people have a hard time um, admitting, maybe even realizing that they're not happy. I know for me personally, look, here's the deal. If you don't ever know what happiness is, you just assume that maybe you are, right? And that's just how happiness is. And it was mind blowing to me when I first like truly felt happiness. Look, it ebbs and flows. It's not every day. It is something that is within. Um, and once you feel that, once you make those changes and you shatter your limiting beliefs, you just want that for everyone else, right? Um,
You, yeah, sorry.
no, 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 you're fine. I always wonder, like, I love talking to you because we have so much in common here, right? And I want that for everyone else. But I told you earlier before we hit record, like, you can't tell people, like, hey, you need to do some healing here. So, how do you ignite change in someone when when you're like, gosh, if they would just heal this, right? Get rid of that limiting belief. How do you ignite change in someone?
Yeah, I asked three questions because ultimately, no one wants to show up and be the worst employee in the world. No one wants to be the worst spouse or significant other. That's not how it starts. And so, if we can start there to realize, wait a minute, they don't want to be this way. Where did these self-limiting beliefs? So, here's the three questions I ask. If somebody says, let's just say they say, I'm shy. That's an easy example. Is that true? And they say yes or no, whatever it is. My second question is, why do you believe that? And then they'll kind of go into, why they believe that they're shy in this example. And the last question I ask is, how is that serving you in your life? Because here's the deal, it is all a choice. If for 44 years I was shy because my family said, JM was a shy kid at 8 years old. If you wake up on your 45th birthday and you want to be the most outgoing person in the world, do it. I'm not saying whether you should be shy or outgoing. That I don't care. But if it's not serving you, this self-limiting belief, why can't we just upgrade? And that's what the third book that I wrote is called Upgrade. Because when I try to change people in coaching before, that's telling them there's something wrong with you. And people are not going to deal well with that.
Yeah,
But if I come to it to say, hey, would you like to upgrade? People love upgrading. So I just asked those three questions. Is that true? Why do you believe it? How's that showing up in your life? And then we just get to work. You were mentioning how it's not always easy to be happy, and there's days where you're like, oh yeah, I woke up that way this morning. And you know what I did? I went through my morning routine that I know is going to ignite me to show up as the best version of me. And about halfway through, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. So finding those routines, that's just a choice that we can make so that I can show up and be the best employee or be the best brother or be the whatever hat you're wearing at the time. And when you ask those questions, there's no judgment. It's just, why do you believe that? Is that true? And how's that serving you in your life?
yeah, I love those questions, and those were the things I asked myself in this process, and I didn't have a coach, and as we discussed the other day on your podcast, what led me to that, right? And the ultimate heartbreak. But I love what you said with, first of all, I have to say something. When you said shy, that used to be like, you always hear that with kids, like you were saying. And you know what happens? It's just what you were describing. Someone says this to you and you're a kid and they're handing you a label. And you just take the label and then we live our life with all of these negative labels that people have given us and that we put on ourselves. And yeah, at 45, you can wake up and be like, am I really shy? I know I told you the other day that, for me, it was, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel pretty enough. I didn't feel loved. And so I looked for all those things in the wrong places. And I just assumed that that's just how life was. Right. And I just, there's freedom when you rip all those negative label offs and you discover who you were. What were your limiting beliefs?
Yeah, so I'll tell you mine in just a second. But one thing that I hope people write this down, remember it for the rest of your life. Labels are meant for boxes, they are not meant for people.
Oh, I
They are
love that. Let's coin that one.
1,000%, right?
Say that one more time because I loved it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it again.
Yeah, labels are meant for boxes. They're not meant for people. And it's
Amen.
funny, again, that the shy thing, just because somebody said you're shy, maybe you were as a kid. Do you think from 8 years old till 38, in 30 years, do you think maybe someone could have changed? But in their mind, they've associated JM as being shy as an 8 year old. Therefore, he's still supposed to be shy today. Well, it's just BS. You change, you evolve, you become a different person. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the 8 year old or anything wrong with 38. It's just the evolution of who you are,
And
the
don't you
lens that
think
you
that
saw.
people hide behind those labels sometimes, though? The people that don't want to change, like that's their excuse.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, how's it serving you, right? Like for me, I was an athlete, played college basketball, and I blew out my knee for the third time. And I went through an immediate identity crisis, if you will, at 21 years old because being an athlete, I was recognized for that. And that served me because, maybe I would have, adoration from girls or maybe the coach would treat me a certain way. And now it's gone. And so what I realized early on is, wait a minute, I'm 21 years old. So what? So you're not an athlete anymore. Now what are you going to be? It wouldn't serve me if I lived in the glory days of, let me tell you how good I was in basketball back. Who cares? That was back then. Now I'm another iteration of who I am. And I think people do hide behind that because it did serve them at one point, or it's just been so ingrained that this is who you are. So if it's serving you, if there is a label that you love, like if being a mindset coach, that that's something I'm proud of because I've put a lot of work in. I feel like it does serve me, so I utilize that one. But that's only one smidgen of who I am. I'm also a dad, a business owner, a brother. I have, so we have so many things that we are, and these labels really try to again put us in a box and shrink who we really are. To answer your question really quick, sorry, I totally derailed there for a moment, but
No, 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 no. Hey, I do the same thing, but that's how you get to the destination.
yeah, my self-limiting belief was around money, and it
Wow.
came from really my dad, and it came from his dad, who came from his dad. Here's how
Mm.
easy it started. We'd drive by the country club, and my dad would be like, "Well, there's the pretty people." Or and I don't know why being a pretty person was a bad thing. Shit, man, I want to be pretty now.
You're
Um,
only pretty if you have money.
yeah, that was kind of the connotation. So I was very fortunate. I made my first seven figures in a year at 27 years old. And
Wow.
you would think, wow, what an accomplishment. I felt terrible about myself because
Mm.
now I was that pretty person. I was that person that somehow that wasn't meant for us.
Oh, you
And
didn't. You didn't think you deserved it.
yeah, yeah, because everyone else, that was everyone else that wasn't meant for us. And again,
Now,
these
did
are
your
just
family? I'm sorry. Did your family because was part of that the reason you felt that maybe because did you feel judgment from your family members because you're the only one that had that accomplishment?
There was definitely a little bit of that. It was I also was raised in a way where you don't talk about yourself.
Mm.
Which has been something that I've also had to overcome because I can't serve the audience I want to serve if I don't give them examples, both good and bad, of who I am. So yeah, there was definitely some of that, and it took a while. I mean, I would say it took me about 6 years as I continuously brought that in to realize money's just an object. It's something that we create. And by the way, if you want to do something amazing with money, fantastic. You're actually creating value and good in the world. But can are there bad people that make money and do bad things with it? Sure, but it's just an object. And so I put all this energy on to this limiting belief that was literally kind of handed down to me from three generations. So going back to the early 1900s, I'm thinking the way they were thinking. How ludicrous is that?
Pioneers.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things I had to work through to realize, is that true? Is having money a bad thing? No. Why do I believe it? Because of all the things I heard my dad, my grandfather say. How's that showing up in my life? Well, I feel terrible when I can actually make money, create companies, give back to charities, all these amazing things. Why would you feel bad about that? It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah. That's really funny. That's, as we're getting to know each other, the one thing that, and I have really, honestly, JM, I didn't realize that. I was talking to my best friend the other day. So when you said money, I was like, this is crazy. I realized like a few weeks ago that I've had a block when it comes to money or financial abundance, so to speak. And I did not realize that. And so for me, a similar situation, it was more about I'm the youngest of four, and my sister is 9 years older. She's the oldest. And so when I was, we had chores we had to do around the house growing up, right? And then we could also do extra things, right? Like wash a car or whatever, and we could earn money. And my parents wouldn't buy name brand stuff or anything like that because we just didn't have that. So if I wanted something that nicer, then I would go spend my money. But my dad, I didn't realize this until the other day. I realized where that came from and that I had a limiting belief there. And this was just a few weeks ago that I realized this. And here I am. I thought I've pulled up all my limiting beliefs. But my dad would, one time he gave me a label, which was, you're going to be just like your sister and spend all your money. I was 12 years old. And from that moment forward, anytime I would be proud of something that I had bought myself with money I had earned, my dad would make that comment every single time. And I just figured this out the other day that I had let that set in me. And so I just always thought I'm not good with money. And it was just really interesting that you said that, of all things.
Well, congrats. That's powerful. And here's the other thing, when people hear this, they're like, we're shaming our parents, and it's not at all. Like everyone is doing the best they can with the tools they have access to. And so, as you said, oh, man, I thought I had all my limiting beliefs figured out. Well, there's still some in there because
Mm-hmm.
this is put in, we're talking subconscious mind versus, being your conscious mind. That's deep seated. So there's some real
Yeah.
work that has to be done. And I love that you discovered it. I'm excited to see what you create now. Holy cow, look at all you've created already. That's going to be awesome for you. I'm
And the
I'm
thing
I'm
is
excited for you.
I do great at it and things like that. But it's like a warrior fear I have inside, right? And I don't remember what brought up the conversation the other day on the phone with my friend. And all she did is kind of like you were talking about when I said, how do you ignite someone's, fire or whatever? She just said, why do you think that is? And I was like, oh. And I realized it. I figured it out. And I'm like, holy shit. Here I am thinking I've conquered it all and shattered all my limiting beliefs. And I just realized I put a block. There's been a block in front of me where I always thought I'm just not good with money.
Hmm.
And I just, it's important to share all those things. I don't want people to ever think, I have people that do think that because I'm a mindset coach, and you might get this too, that I know everything and I've healed myself completely. And, that's just not the case. I'm constantly working on myself and growing and changing. And I just learned something that to me was huge just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that it is an interesting thing when you have access to knowledge or you've
Mhm.
learned something and you share it. This happens with my wife often, where I will share something, but maybe I'm not 100% doing what I talked about, and she'll call me on it, and my answer is always the same: thank you. Because just like you, Janna, I'm a work in progress. We all are. If anybody stops and says I have arrived, oh no, you're losing now.
You know
Because
what
there's
that
only
means to me? I have arrived means I'm staying stuck right here.
yep, yep,
I'm
because
not
there's
going
only two
anywhere
ways.
else.
You're growing or you're dying. Like, and if you think you've arrived, in my opinion, now you're going to start to decay. So that
Yeah.
is why, one of the mantras of the company is getting better every day. I know that I can be better today. I pursue that with the vigor because I want to be the best version of me. I don't know what that looks like yet. I can't wait.
Oh, I
Someday,
love
maybe, but probably it'll never happen. And that's going to keep me going every single day.
I love that. I really do. And I believe that as long as you're constantly learning, you're growing. And, you know, the moment that you think you know everything is the moment that you stop learning. And um, I thought about something when you said that, your wife will check you on things, right? And your response was, thank you. Thank you for pointing it out. And thank you for letting me know. And I had a thought of most people, if they were especially in an unhealed mindset, when someone calls them out on something in a nice, gentle approach and from a loving place, most people get defensive. And I think for me, Jam, that's one of the first things I notice with people sometimes is their defense mechanism.
Mm.
Um, and that's because I realized I kind of had that too when my mindset was limited. So, did you have a defense mechanism? Did you used to have a defense mechanism, or would you have always had just said thank you to your wife before you healed your mindset?
No, I have an awful temper that hopefully no one will ever see.
You're so
And
nice.
thank you. I've worked at it. So there's two things that I definitely did because it's just fight or flight, right? I mean, this is
Hmm.
basic stuff. If somebody gets defensive, that's their fight, or if they just go away. So I did both. I stuffed and I would just
Mm.
leave. I
Okay.
stuffed because I was also taught that boys don't cry. That is
Stuffed as in
freaking
stuffed your emotions, or just like didn't deal with things.
Oh, both.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, boys don't cry. That's what I was
mm,
taught, which is terrible advice, by the way.
yes, it is.
Um, and what you realize is okay, so you're going to stuff it and stuff it, stuff. So then it explodes in this volcanic burst of energy. It's like, that's not going to go well.
No.
So, what I learned early on, and this is, by the way, we can apply this personally and anybody listening that's in sales, feedback is gold. I don't care how mean the feedback is. If somebody's willing to give it to you, all you should say is thank you. Couple
Oh, I
things
like
happen.
that.
It disarms them because they're expecting you to
Mm.
fight back. But if you just say, James, you're such a jerk. Okay, thank you. I'd love to know how I can show up better. Watch what happens if you say that to somebody that's trying to get you going. They don't know how to respond.
It would totally caught me off guard. I'd have been like, okay, hey, you know what? You're
Because
not nice. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for
Is there some
noticing.
yeah, is there something I could do so that you would feel I'm a better person? And let them talk. It disarms everything they have to say And ultimately, all they're willing to do, they're doing two things. They're either projecting their own stuff
Mm,
on you,
mhm.
or they're giving you real feedback that you can't see because your lens, when we look in the
Yes.
mirror, or here's a better example, you're recording your audiobook.
Hmm.
Does your voice sound how you think it sounds when you listen back to it?
No, it was hard when I started podcasting. I would cringe
Mm.
and looked like I was in fetal position the first time I heard my voice.
Yeah, and that's how we all are, right? We think we show up a certain way to the world, but then when you actually get it played back, you're like, "Oh, I actually sound that way." It's the same way. I could think I'm showing up as the best version of me, and somebody has the nah, they're willing the courage to say, you know what, you're not showing up as the best you. All I should say is thank you so much for letting me know I don't want to show up that way, and you're helping me. So with sales, if you have people ask for feedback, whether they went with you or they didn't, because that's absolute
Hmm.
gold. And every time you just say thank you. So anyway.
Yes, because and there's so many little gold nuggets there. Um, yes, because there is people see things we don't see in ourselves, right? It's really really hard, and like so when you said that the lens, right? As you heal yourself and you start to maybe see what other people see, your lens gets clearer. Um, but I think you just gave everyone a really valuable tool, which is um, wanting constructive criticism or feedback, um, but also what to do when it's given. Because I think that saying thank you can work in two different ways. Um, number one, if the person that's giving you the feedback is sincere and it's coming from a good place, when you say thank you, that's not going to upset them. It's not going to make them defensive. But if maybe their intentions are not good, when you say thank you, that's going to show because it's gonna piss them off. So I love that. Like you just gave me a tool for my tool bag. You know what? You're not a nice person. I'm like, thank you so much.
Well, you know what's interesting, and this also works, and especially now you've gone through the work, but you didn't feel pretty enough or good enough. If somebody used to say to you, "Janna, you are gorgeous," you would
Mm,
probably say something like, "Well, no," or somehow discount their compliment. And by the way,
mm-hmm.
you are saying no, your opinion doesn't mean that to me. You're actually destroying something that they created that was beautiful.
Oh,
So this is, I only speak to this because again, I used to not take compliments. Well, I would be like, try to be humble. No,
yeah.
no, no,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. JM, I think you said I have a great voice for podcasts. Thank you.
Oh, you
That's
do.
amazing.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, no, it's actually, I could make a funny, like, does that mean I have a bad face for film? I could say something stupid like that.
A
But the
defense
truth is,
mechanism.
yes. And so instead, you just say, you know what, Janna? Thank you. That's amazing. I really appreciate you. And now you validated them. They feel better. And it's just a way that it really works well, both with accepting criticism and feedback and compliments. It's a simple two words. Thank you.
I really like that, and I think that's something that everyone needs to work on is accepting compliments and things like that. And something I realized, JM, is that I think sometimes the compliments we have a hard time receiving. Like if someone listening is like, I don't know what my limiting beliefs are. What the hell is that? Maybe start thinking about what offends you. If someone gives a compliment, which compliment makes you uncomfortable that you don't want to accept, right? And because just like you just said, um, and you're right. And I still today, I'm going to be honest, um, I still struggle with compliments if it has to do with my appearance.
Hmm.
I do much better at it, but that's because that was just a struggle my entire life. And even though I've done a lot of healing, I don't think you're ever done healing. I think it's just, I think it's how you react to it and the effect that it has on you. And I now realize that if someone gives me a compliment on my physical appearance, that first feeling I get is of cringe. And then realize what's happening. And I always just say, thank you very much. Um, but I have learned that a lot of the times, the things that are offending us, our insecurities, they're kind of really easy to figure out, honestly. And I feel like someone who has done the healing, they bring out insecurities in others that have not done the healing.
Oh yeah, big time. My wife and I talk about this often because you are a mirror for somebody else, and you have if they're not feeling great about themselves and you have lifted yourself from a place of where you weren't, it does make them feel somewhat inadequate at times, and I don't want them to ever feel that way because it's not true. And here's the other crazy thing: no one will ever know the lens that someone else has gone through, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking my mom and dad, as well as I know them. I don't know what their lens was when they were 5 years old and 10 years old and all that growing up. So when some of these things are said, it's really kind of crazy for me to judge, to ever think like, well, why would they say that? I don't know what they came from. And so that you're absolutely correct in that we are a reflection for them as well. And when they say it, just again, thank you. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I love that. I really do. And I could keep talking to you forever, but I know I was told that you only have till 11 o'clock. So, or I guess that's noon your time, right?
I'm actually good. I rescheduled, but I know you got to wrap up the show too. So whatever you want to
No,
do,
I
I'm
mean,
good.
I honestly, I think it's just important I think the other thing that I thought about, JM, is that, um, I know for me, as I did the healing, um, I was, I really started to notice that, I triggered a lot of people, and that was really hard for me because I didn't know why, and I started to realize that I don't have those insecurities anymore that were making them comfortable, and so
Mm.
when I grew and I leveled up, um, it made others uncomfortable. Did you experience that at all when you shattered your limiting beliefs?
Yeah, actually, so I have 13 daily reminders, or that's where it started. Now it's 7. And one of those that I have on there is surround yourself with people that lift you up.
Oh yes.
Because I believe there's two people in this world: people lift you up or they drag you down. I don't think there's this middle plateau.
Mm-mm.
And here's the trick of the matter. And my brother and I, we talk about this. There was a time where we really, as close as we were, I wasn't making his life better by being a part of it
Oh, okay.
because, yeah, because some of the stuff he was, being challenged with, and some of my growth, and so it wasn't a positive experience for him, regardless of my intentions. I wanted love for him. I wanted the best for him, but it didn't make him feel good. And I finally told him, I said, Pat, I'm not we're not at a place where I should really be involved in your life, because it's clearly making your situation, your daily, the way you feel, it's not making it better. And my intention is only to give you love and happiness. So until we can get to that point, which we are back at now, by the way, where we're very open, where we talk about this, and there isn't a feeling of, well, James doing this, so I should feel bad about myself. In fact, now he'll come and say, hey, what do you think about this? And we have this amazing conversation. But yeah, it is interesting how that's when you said the word level up. And that doesn't mean that you're, I don't know, think of your high school friends that you love because you have these amazing memories, but maybe you have leveled up and you want to continue to grow, and they're cool staying and not learning things, and that's cool. It's not a judgment. It doesn't mean that you're good and they're
Yeah.
bad. It just means that we're not aligned anymore. And
Yeah.
so that's one of those tough realizations, because you want to hang on so dearly to these relationships that you've had. You can still have them in your life, but they probably, it wouldn't be your closest circle anymore. And So yeah, that was a tough one to accept, but it was a really important one for me.
Yeah, and I think that that's really big to make that decision, because it was a decision for him. And when someone's really down on themselves, and maybe they're even in a depressed state, that was kind of where that's kind of what happened with me as I did my healing. People I cared about deeply that hadn't done the healing yet, and that's when I started to realize, like, I'm really, really happy right now, and I have a lot going for me. And you just want to share those things with those that you love, right? That you're closest with. But I noticed as I was doing that with this particular person, it was making her feel it was making her feel worse.
Yeah.
And I just kind of backed away a little bit, and I thought, if she asks me something about my life or what's going on, I'll answer it. But like, in other words, I can't get her to understand where I'm at or what it's like. She just kind of felt like like you said, like I thought I was better. I'd made it. That wasn't the case at all. But it's really, really hard it's really hard also to be around someone that hasn't done the healing. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's you don't get along. You can't relate anymore. That relatability is gone when some of those insecurities are healed.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're not aligned. I use that word a lot. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I don't like you. I still send love to these people, and if I saw them, I give them a hug, and
Yeah,
anything I could do. But you're just not aligned. And
yeah,
by the way, here's the other thing: you both know it. You
that is
both
true.
can feel it. It's
That
just
is
a
true.
matter of if you're willing to accept it. I wanted to say one thing. Just I don't know why this came to me. I was thinking about you while you're talking, and I was thinking about one of the things with kids, I'm passionate, as we talked off air, about my two boys. They have said the same mantra every single day of their life. My youngest literally won't go to bed unless he and I do this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if any parents are listening, I'm not saying I'll give you the one that we use, and I would shorten it, by the way, because mine was way too long. But it's something that you can empower your kids with tremendously. It's a tool that you can all use. So I ask my kids, "Are you a leader?" And they say, "Yes." I say, "How come?" They say, "Because I'm confident, strong, intelligent,
Aw.
athletic, good looking, dynamic, popular, talented, independent man or boy with a growth mindset." And it's helped both of them in many scenarios, but especially my youngest. He was being bullied. And I did a video on this.
Oh.
It's actually one of the most viral videos. Kid was being bullying Trey, and he said, "You're fat." And Trey said, "Huh." He goes, and I said, "Well, what'd you say?" He said, he repeated it. He goes, "I'm confident, strong, intelligent, athletic." He did the whole thing. And I said, "Well,
Wow.
what did the bully do?" He goes, "He didn't know what to do, Dad." And I was like, "Damn
Oh,
right, kid."
wow. That just almost got me teary eyed. It really did, because ah, that got me emotional. As a mom of three, that's all you want to do is instill your kids with that got me really sad, with confidence and happiness and love, and to accept themselves. And I think you and I both had we've both had body issues and things like that. And so, for me, overcoming eating disorders when I was little, like I work really hard at making sure my little girl, my boys, know that they're absolutely perfect the way they are, and that bullies. This is what I tell my kids, JM, is that bullies are not happy with themselves,
Mm,
and they are just projecting the pain that they're receiving from someone else, and it has nothing to do with you. And I think that this is a perfect way to end this episode, um, because uh, man, our youth today, I feel like they face harder challenges than we did, be it with the people hiding behind the screens, bullying, and there's just so much that they have to deal with. And um, if we can heal ourselves, then our kids don't have to deal with our own shit. And man, I'm so grateful that you and I are getting to know each other, and I hope that we have many, many more episodes and and talks to share, because there's just so much to discuss on this subject. And when people heal their minds, man, they free their life.
Yeah, I agree with you. As I told you, I think you're in my life whether you like it or not for a while.
Hey, I'm in.
Um, yeah, and you lift me up, and obviously you're lifting up your audience. You know,
Well,
thank you for having me. It was awesome, and I have so many of those mantras I would love to share, but I with the parents, I just want them to think about it. You know, feed your kids that because the world's going to tell them everything that they're not according to them.
yeah.
So they need to be able to give themselves the real tools to say, I'm all these amazing things. So anyway, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Will you please tell everyone where they can find you and follow you?
Yeah. So let's go win podcast. Go listen. Janna killed it. It was awesome. Let's go win.com. There's free work life balance sheet on there. I think there's a free ebook way to do it. I should know that. And then let's go win 365 on Instagram. That's where I have the most traction. I would say, just hit me up, DM me if you have any questions because I love inspiring people to live their best lives because I am fortunate to have done it. And so, yeah, Janna, thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, JM. I've loved having you on the show, and I can't wait to have you again.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I will see you next week.